When I joined the project, I was quite sure I wanted to work on the topics mediation and education because I'm studying cultural education at the university in Ludwigsburg. And when I was digging into the topic, the first thing I found that quite surprised me was that there are quite a lot Jewish museums in Germany. And what is like surprising about that is most of them, not all, but most of them are like run by non-Jewish people. And that was something that really interested me. So I decided to focus on the topic, how Jewish heritage is preserved in Germany. And furthermore, the role of these museums in terms of social reality, meaning I wanted to explore like to what extent those museums can provide like educational work in a democratic manner, for example, against discrimination, but especially anti-Semitism. When I was like searching for a museum, I found one that for me, I found quite suitable for exploring the topic of shared heritage. It's a museum not too far away from our university, actually. And what is quite surprising is that the Jewish museum there is located in a former Lutheran church. And that is like quite unique and especially quite suitable for the context of a shared heritage. What is also very special about the museum is that there are some objects like the benches you can see here, like the chandeliers, and also like a tavern sign called the King David's Inn. And those objects have like a really special history that is quite suitable for our context here. And I wanted to explain the history of those objects to you in like a quick movie. And the object history is quite linked to the history of the Jewish community there. So I decided to make a little film about the Jewish community.
History of the Jewish community in Göppingen-Jebenhausen. So in 1777, the Lords of Liebenstein, the royal house in the area of today's Göppingen district, and the delegation of Jewish men signed a letter of protection. This letter made it possible for a huge Jewish community to settle. Around 1850, at the peak of the immigration, approximately 530 Jews lived in Jebenhausen. The community quickly established their important institutes, like a synagogue, a cemetery, a mikvah, a school, and some guest houses. Fun fact, one of the tavern signs, a King David playing harp, is still preserved until today and is now used as a symbol for the Jewish Museum. Jebenhausen as a village was divided into a Jewish part and a Christian part. Both communities only interacted for business reasons. Due to legal limitations, most of the Jews earned their living through trade, so they were cattle dealers or peddled merchandise needed in the village. With the village's incorporation into the Kingdom of Württemberg in 1805, Jews gradually received more rights, and in 1864 they finally achieved equality with Christians. The former protected Jews became citizens with full legal rights. In 1862, the synagogue in Jebenhausen was newly refurbished. A successful Jewish businessman, Daniel Rosenthal, donated some beautiful and valuable chandeliers for the benefits of his community. But from the middle of the 19th century on, many Jews left Jebenhausen. Most of them moved to the next larger city, Göppingen. Here, at the onset of industrialization, they experienced better employment opportunities. So they decided to build a new synagogue in 1880, and the old one was abandoned and finally closed in 1899. Also of no longer use were the chandeliers and benches. Following the closure of the synagogue and its subsequent clearance, the Jewish community decided to give both to the Lutheran church of the village. The thankful pastor called them a gem for his church. So both objects remained in sacral use, symbolizing a strong interreligious connection. The chandeliers and benches are still in use in the former church today, which now is the Jewish Museum Göppingen-Niebenhausen. They represent what the community is trying to show: the memory of a shared, interconnected heritage that was destroyed in the night, but now gets reassured and rebuilt.
Yeah, so as you can see, those objects have quite a special history to them. And since they are still remaining in the museum today, also the museum has a special atmosphere. And I wanted to give you the opportunity to get in touch with this special atmosphere by showing you some pictures of how the museum is looking today. So Christiane, if you wouldn't mind to press the next slide, please. Yeah, here you can get like an overview of how the museum is looking. You can tell by the picture, it's not like a huge museum. It's quite small, actually, just like the little village where it is located. And you can also tell that the appearance of the former church is quite still strong. I chose this picture to give you an impression of how the exhibition itself is designed. Most of the museum is designed in white, but there are also some parts where are designed in black. Whenever the color is switching to black, the museum is dealing with the persecution under the Nazis. But it tries to end with an outlook, like a bright outlook on the future. So on the next slide, you can see how the exhibition is closing. And it's closing with a section called Mourning, Remembering, Accompanying, and Commemorating. With this section, you can actually tell it's not only a museum, but a memorial as well. Wanted to share with you guys some thoughts and some discoveries I made during my case study, because I had the opportunity not only to visit the museum, but to talk to the founder of the museum, to the director of the museum, and also to the designer of the museum. And what was really interesting for me was that the museum is like super important to the people who actually run it. The founder somehow invested not only his whole career, but I would say probably also his personal life into the research that finally allowed him to open up the museum. There are still, like today, people are volunteering, like local people from the small village of Jebenhausen are volunteering to keep the museum open, to show people around. And so you can probably say it's more like an action group or a citizens initiative that runs the museum. What I found like interesting or what I had to understand during my case study was that this museum, yes, it is a Jewish museum. It is also a memorial, but overall, that's the impression that I got. It's a city museum because there are local people that are trying to preserve their Jewish heritage, like the city's Jewish heritage. And they are doing that because they understand this heritage as part of the city's identity and therefore as their own identity. They are trying to make their Jewish heritage visible all over their small village. Of course, they are also trying to somehow limit the danger and the damage of the Nazi era, because you have to admit from a historical perspective, you couldn't speak about a shared heritage at all. But today they are trying to like reverse the neglection and honor the Jewish heritage as their own heritage. The museum somehow is a meeting point because the founder tried like really, really hard to get in contact with former citizens and their families, and they somehow like stayed in close contact. So he's not Jewish himself, but he really tried to get some Jewish perspectives into the museum, because I feel like they're trying to work on their like small part to a better future, maybe a shared future, and they're trying to initiate like dialogue, not only interreligious dialogue, but only intercultural dialogue. And that is not only between Jews and Christians, but between all the different groups in our migrant society in Germany today. What I learned in my case study is that sometimes you don't really need like big political agendas or huge like labels like the EU tried to do so with the year of the shared heritage in 2018. Sometimes it can just be enough that there are some local people who are trying like really hard and knowing that they possess something valuable. So they are just trying to like preserve it, and so they're proceeding and they have achieved in creating something really great.